Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. What profession was once highly respected, but is now a complete joke? Grocery store clerk. In the old days it was a respectable position to hold. Nowadays it's viewed as a kid job, minimum wage grunt job. I worked in 3 grocery stores. Some of the management positions or heads can be respected, but all of the stokers or cashiers are treated like absolute garbage by people. There's only so many times can scream complain are you before you just say dude I just work here. What the yuck, but no, I have to apologize and make them feel better. No wonder the average stocker or cashier only lasted a few months. Unless you're in small towns. You yell at a small town cashier and she's there for the next 20 years and hates you. Why on earth would anyone yell at a cashier? I don't understand how a cashier could be involved with the problem or solution. Mainly to bully them to do what they want. Granted, I had absolutely no power to do anything, which these people fail to understand. So I just called my manager over and let them deal with it. But the customers almost always got what they wanted. Teaching. My migrant parents still think it is still a respected career, but teachers are treated horribly, not only by students, have so much responsibility and work to do, and don't get paid nearly enough for any of it. I feel like where I live they're still respected, but definitely don't get paid enough. They also deal with terrible parents and children too much as well. Respected by those who don't have kids. The parents try to just swallow us whole. My whole family rallied around talking my brother out of becoming a teacher. Law enforcement seem on par with the current trend. They were frontline heroes at the beginning of the epidemic. To some, BLM kicked off in 2013, and Kaepernick took a knee in 2016. Complaints about police are not new. It's only now that people are pissed, poor, and quarantined that they give a shit. Minorities have complained about police brutality for decades. It was just ignored. The Rodney King incident was in the early 90s. When's the last time you met a blacksmith? Dark Souls probably. Clang clang clang, prithee be careful. I don't want to see my work squandered. Real estate agent. Before the internet, an agent would have to inform you of houses for sale, etc. Now they basically get paid to sign some documents. I live in Vancouver, and over the last several years I've seen many situations where a buyer goes out, does their own house hunting, and then the agent comes in to arrange the paperwork and collects $20,000 for doing a couple hours of work. Felt like I paid someone an awful lot to read Zillow search results to me. Yeah, with all the real estate search websites programs, they don't do much on the searching side. Agents may add some value in some ways, but the pay they receive doesn't seem to match the value they provide. There are many agents in my area that make more than a doctor would. How long does it take to get a real estate license? A few weeks? Bought my first home in 2001. Prior to making my choice, my realtor was sending me listings, photos, arranging showings, making appointments for me to get approved for a mortgage. She really hustled to make the sale. 15 years later, when I bought my second home, the realtor did none of those things, only met with me twice, and forgot a couple of major details. I did all of my own legwork over the internet. He was basically useless. Nighttime radio DJ. That medium is barely relevant anymore. If you're not on the air during morning or afternoon drive, you're just filler. Rest in peace, Art Bell. RIP Coast to Coast. Daytime radio is still a thing. A lot of businesses here still have a radio playing during work hours. Mostly manufacturing businesses, but some offices too. Nighttime is a bit dead, yes. I think part of it is that it's become very difficult for someone who is not a professional, or at least own professional level tools, to diagnose their own car issues or do any of their own work. Many of the systems in modern cars are basically a black box to the average person. So this creates a natural distrust given the asymmetric information between customer and mechanic. That plus that fact that most people no longer have a regular mechanic with whom they have an established relationship. New cars don't need service very often. And if you are only taking your car in every couple years, you may never deal with the same person twice. And then when something does go wrong, you are dealing with a stranger and have little or no way to verify what he is telling you about the necessary repairs and costs. As a mechanic, I can agree. I worked for a shop Only 5 employees total, and everybody loved us because we were straightforward and to the point. The owner turned wrenches too, which also helped. If you come in with a problem and we weren't 100% sure what it was, we were completely honest. Hey, odds are it's X. That's the most common issue and the best place to start. However, if X doesn't fix it, it will need Y and would end up costing this much. We can start with just X and see if it works, or we can just hot it with XY and guarantee it solves the problem. This rang true with problems that require pulling the whole dash out of a vehicle. It's very labor intensive and costs $700 plus just in labor when the part is only $20 or $25 for the other part. Normally in those instances we just quote them both parts right away and replaced both. Costs a bit more, but the insurance is well worth not telling them, hey, it didn't fix it and we have to pull the dash again. Otherwise we would just give them a worst case scenario price and best case scenario price. If we get in there and see it only needs the one thing, that's all we fix, unless they just want it all done anyways. Coolant leaks were a biggie. Yes, the radiator hose is leaking, but fixing it will allow the system to build up to full pressure again and the leak will just go to the next weakest point, whether it can handle it or not. We also made a huge point of bring the customer in the shop and physically showing them what is actually wrong or broken. That's how you build their trust. Otherwise they're just taking your word that it needs this $300 part, and people don't like that. This is true. My boyfriend left auto because of the flat rate nightmare. He works heavy equipment now, which is a whole different thing thanks to a lack of private customers. He also is union and doesn't work for flat rate. Lawyer used to be really respectable. Now, with a glut of law schools providing an oversupply of lawyers and shows like Better Call Saul depicting a less prestigious form of lawyer, the profession has taken a big hit. Lawyers were ruined because of lawyers. Source: I'm lawyer. Boy, you sure are a contentious bunch. You've just made an enemy for life. Engineering drafter. The trade used to be filled with highly skilled tradesmen who were skilled in both mathematical and artistic talent. Now a lot of the industry is filled with it grads who only know how to click a button. The trade itself is dying as engineers are being forced to do more of their own computer drafting. IDK, I am an engineering technologist, and from where I sit engineers are mostly managers now, while the technologists have widely taken over a good portion of what people typically think engineers do. Might just be the trend where I work though. I'd say engineering drafters have just been replaced by technologists as a job title. I've seen the opposite happen. Junior engineers get paid near the same as drafters technologists and don't get paid time and a half for overtime. There has also been quality issues getting non-engineering drafters to follow CAD standards, which isn't a problem for junior engineers. There are good drafters technologists out there, but most barely understand what they are doing and require a lot of handholding to do anything more than be a basic CAD monkey. Yep. This is the way it is in my field. I've seen both ends of the spectrum, where the CAD tech at my current job is a wizard with the software and has a passion for his work. My last job, the senior CAD tech was constantly asking the junior engineers for basic software help that Google could answer, to the point where it was just faster to not use them. Most techs fall somewhere in between. Junior engineers definitely have take over the drafting role, but honestly so much of the design is integrated into the software now it almost makes more sense that way. I've also seen young engineers burn out because they expected to do more design and less CAD. Blue collar jobs, or anything that needs manual labor, now they are just seen as jobs for people who didn't finish high school or couldn't get into college. And it sucks. Yeah, which is weird because they pay really good money in some places. And not just because it's labor intensive. Some of those jobs are incredibly technical and demand a lot of engineering skills. Yeah, but the US is so white collar driven that everyone seems to forget about trades, and it's sad. Of my graduating class of about 500, only 20 of us including me are pursuing journalism. Really though, imagine going to journalism school these days. I can still remember the big fat newspapers when I was a kid. That's how you got the scores from the night before. They were so important. I can't imagine what it's like for a journalist that's about to retire now, who started in say 1985. Such an important job. All the advertisers had to go through you, and now you are barely relevant. How about the ones who started in 1975, who are retiring soon? Since that was 45 years ago, so a 25-year-old then is 70 now, they started right after Watergate, thinking it would be an amazing career. Their career was probably rewarding, but anyone going into journalism now is almost certainly screwed. 100%. Being a philosopher. I'd say they were always pretty disrespected. Many of the most quoted philosophers either were treated like mooches by their patrons, or lived shitty, short lives constantly in fear of being put on trial by whatever authority might take exception to their work. Shut up and drink your hemlock. Yeah, wasn't Socrates executed for corrupting the minds of the youth? Jesters. Now they're all clowns. Today's jesters are all in Hollywood, just there for your entertainment, and when they start piping up about politics, remember their skill is pretending. Court jesters used to be the only ones who could talk shit about the king and live to tell about it. Comedians making jokes and spitting venom at world leaders is nothing new. I like the way you think. Never change. Hate to say it, but Catholic priest, you can barely mention it without the pedophilia jokes seeping into the conversation somewhere. It is kind of a shame. Really, not for the priests but for the various other valid criticisms you could levy against the church and the priesthood. Systematically abusing children gets all the attention. Catholic priests have been in ill repute before. At one point a few hundred years ago some guy got so pissed off, he ended up starting a new church. I think his name was Gibson Ludia, something like that. I think there was another guy too. He was like the 7th or 8th guy with his name. He also took marry, sleep, kill a little too seriously. Go to feel sorry for Sinead O'Connor. She got death threats for talking about what is common knowledge these days. News reporter. IDK what you're talking about. I only get the most professional, respectable impression when I read about how this celebrity got slammed on social media for punching a disabled child in the face. Only to click the article and read about how a few random people upvoted a meme when a celebrity doing a make-a-wish accidentally bumped into the child and promptly apologized with no further issue, and really can't begin to express the kind of top talent it takes to find a viral video and make an article that narrates everything that happens in the video without even trying to pretend you did any further research than just watching the video. If crappy pop culture news was their worst sin, that would be one thing. But the amount of barefaced politicking and running with narratives before the facts get their pants on is absolutely disgraceful. It was bad enough when they chose being first over being right, but nowadays it's just advance the right left-wing narrative at all costs and move on to the next half-truth as soon as they start to catch on. Oh, I wasn't even gonna get started on that since that's more of a societal problem. It's not at all limited to journalists. I read an article describing how people on social media had criticized the CEO of CrossFit for being silent about BLM, without the author implying any sort of absurdity in that fact. The CEO of CrossFit? Why do we expect the CEO of CrossFit to have a relevant political opinion? Christ, did you know Arizona Ice-T faced backlash for using designs that included some elements of local Native American art styles on one of their products? As though the region they were trying to portray hadn't literally always had Native Americans who would have been influencing local culture? YTF as being a warrior solely devoted to reclaiming the holy city for Christendom no longer a widely respected and sustainable occupation. It was 1527, and you types were the ones sacking the holy city. Then the 189. In the service of heaven. They're protecting the holy line. No idea, bro. Barbering. Used to be shamans and surgeons in their respective societies. Now I hear, oh, you just cut hair, and oh, my friend cut hair until they got a real job from people driving beat up cars while I drive a 2016 Ford Edge. Just seems silly to call my job fake when you don't even have stable work and still have to ask your boss to take a piss. 2016 Ford Edge. Weird flex. It's not a flex, it's an edge. Didn't you even read the comment? Maybe that's what a Ford Edge actually is. A weird Ford flex. Mapmaker. Cartographers used to get Alva. Now they've been replaced by cars and drones. Do cars and drones really need that? Don't kink shame. Banking. My great grandfather was a bank manager for the state rural bank. Back then, In a country town, the banker was a trusted friend and advisor within the community. My great-grandfather used that power to help men. He helped many non-English speaking migrants to set up bank accounts and save and eventually to buy homes. There are many Italian and Greek descendant people in town here whose families are wealthy. Few of them realize that all started with the advice and help my great-grandfather gave their great-grandparents a long time ago. He was also the first rural bank manager to hire an indigenous person as a bank clerk. Head office told him to fire the guy. He told head office he wouldn't. Head office threatened to fire him and the clerk. Word got out and within a week head office was flooded with letters, calls and telegrams from supportive community members saying leave our bank manager alone. We support him. During COVID, all the Australian banks lowered everyone's mortgage payments to help them out. Whether you asked for it or not, ours got reduced from $90 a week to $20 a week. Read the fine print. You still get charged interest and your mortgage is actually increasing as you are not paying off the minimum anymore. Our mortgage has gone up because of this, but no. I have to go into the branch to get my repayments put back to where they were. Well done banks for making it look like you helped us all out when what you actually did is push the payments back to make us owe you more money. I think you're burying the lead here with the fact that your mortgage is $90 per week. Plague Doctor, although it's making a comeback. President. Can't wait for the Salt Hall on Reddit when he gets re-elected. Telephone operator. For those of you who are too young to know, before my time there was a person who actually physically pulled an audio jack and moved it to the appropriate wire to connect your phone call, and you could dial 0 to speak with them if you didn't know the number for whoever you were calling. Slave catcher. Go to catch 'em all. r/angry upvote. Being a clown. Poor people used to do it for travel and money from it, but now if you're a clown, you'll be made fun of. Now if you're a clown, you'll be made fun of. That's literally their job. Also, if you like clowns, I think you'll like the TV show Baskets. Louis Anderson plays the mom in it and he's fucking amazing. Catholic clergy. Join our community Discord, link in description. Mail carrier. Think about it, you used to know them on a first name basis back in the day. They'd deliver it right to your door and with a smile on their face. They'd ask you how you were. Now we have Amazon drivers that Hail Mary packages at your door. Milkman. We actually have them here again. But before 5 years ago, the only time you ever heard of the milkman being referenced was in connection with children of questionable parentage. Telephone sanitizer. The Golgafrinchans knew how to deal with telephone sanitizers. They all say that till there's a particularly virulent disease spread by a dirty telephone. Artist. I don't think it's a complete joke, for I am an artist myself, but around 1600 to 1800 artists were extremely respected and constantly in high demand by kings and emperors for their talent and knowledge on human anatomy, perspective, aesthetics, etc. Nowadays many people see us as unsuccessful and lazy, which there are people like that indeed, but it became a stereotype of being an artist in a good chunk of the world. I think there's some sample bias there because the only ones we remember were the successful and famous ones. Television news anchor. Politicians of any kind. People used to listen to politicians and laugh at comedians. Now people listen to comedians and laugh at politicians, until they realize the politicians aren't joking. Law enforcement. Granted, most people that work there still deserve respect, but as you know, a few bad apples can ruin a whole batch. I've actually wanted to be a detective as my career so I could help people and not let the criminals get away doing terrible things. It's probably not respected anymore, but I still want to help society. Few bad apples can ruin a whole batch. United Airlines can't say most of our pilots can land planes. We just have a few bad apples. Chris Rock. Some professions don't tolerate bad apples because they are too costly. What we need to see is the police reliably and transparently rejecting bad cop behavior and bad cops. I agree. The police organization cannot tolerate racist cop behavior. Question is, how will they catch a racist within the organization? Will they just go on their gut feelings on who is a racist and fire them? Most likely, officers will show their racist beliefs after they've proven so with harmful actions. Edit. Also, the police force isn't the only one that's discriminatory. I've known racist teachers, employers, And I believe there was news on racist doctors who would pick their patients on race. Point being, it should not be tolerated but is ingrained in our human nature to look at certain races as being inferior. VCR repairman. Hey, now, lightning fast VCR repair does great business. Soothsayer. IKR. Now people just see their zodiac online. Nobody wants to hear prophecies anymore. Construction workers. They literally built the world, but now due to cheap labor, shit work conditions and lax safety rules, it's become a job for dropouts, dope heads and people who have no idea what they're doing. I worked doing construction for years and you won't believe how crappy your homes and businesses are put together. Ask that guy that can barely speak the native language what the air gap is supposed to be between the interior wall and exterior. Be prepared for him, he don't know, but hey, they can read that level bubble though. That's all they care about. Literally had jobs postponed for 2 weeks or more due to this. Architects have to see if it's okay or not and just everything gets thrown off. I seriously had a building start with a 1-inch gap on one end and end up with a 5-inch gap at the other, which when doing something that needs to be as precise as windows turns into a nightmare. Materials are made cheaper and cheaper. Fabrication equipment is not purchased, so everything is cut and drilled by hand, which adds a lot for human error. Everything just becomes a nightmare due to cheap work conditions. You end up being the blame for something being a hair off, but you're only human. Perhaps if the owners sprang for the money for the correct fabrication equipment, things wouldn't be that way. Teaching. Hopefully the USA can pull a Finland and turn it back to a respectful profession. Statue makers. Journalism. I have a degree that I probably won't use because the field today completely lacks objectivity, which is what the profession is supposed to stand on. 24-hour news networks and Twitter were originally to blame, but it was dead when a certain president popularized the term fake news. Calligraphers and those working in manual printing. That is, using actual printing presses, because everyone sees it as an outdated job, whereas it's actually one that takes a lot of skill and time to learn. Alchemist. You just get weird looks now. It's on the flip side of this question. Acting. Before motion pictures, acting troupes were really looked down on, like gypsies. Sure, they come to your village or town and entertain you for a few hours, but watch out. If you turn your back, they would be stealing your kids right from under your noses. Astrologist. It's been a long time since they've been important, but once they were highly respected. A physician without a knowledge of astrology has no right to call himself a physician. Hippocrates. Teaching. Back then it was a noble profession where adults molded the young minds of the next generation. Now it's turned into simple daycare where teachers have to abide by the new number one rule of the classroom: the parent is always right even when they are very, very wrong. Cleaner. My mom works as one, and I used to work with her. Ordinary cleaners get all the shit thrown at them. This is usually caused because the position is given to inexperienced people who are capable of only cleaning their own house, not maggots from showers and dried up diarrhea from under the toilet seat. There are only a couple of cleaning companies in my city, and my mom is one of the high-tier ones. While the two competing companies in this city hire and train literally anyone to a point of being an above average cleaner, my mom handpicks who get to work for her, who has the talent, as she says, and personally trains all of her employees. She is one of the cleaners for rich people. She cleans all of those expensive furniture stores. You know the drill. You think that rich people and rich companies would want the best cleaners, and would be happy to pay any kind of price to have the cleanest possible workplace. But the opposite is true. These rich chucks always try to negotiate lower price than what she usually gets paid, and it's the companies and stores that are usually cheap as uck, and try to pay her the least amount possible. She often meets with disrespect from these companies when they negotiate the price, or when the contract is about to expire. Most of her income is coming from cleaning houses of rich people in the rich district of our capital city, because these people are more willing to pay for clean house, just so that they can flex it later to other rich people at parties. Blockbuster employees. Being in the politics. Banking. People only see them as crooks now. University professor or administrator. Doctor. They used to be respected and highly paid. Now they are mocked. Told the diagnosis by the patients I have cancer. I googled the symptoms myself and are under constant threat of lawsuits. And above all that, they have to deal with anti-vaxxers. God bless doctors. This is very over-exaggerated. My parents are doctors. They are still well respected, especially during COVID. This is absolutely false. They are still highly respected. The internet is just bigger outlet for ignorant people to share their ideas. There's always been stupid people and there will always be. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.